education matters. A budget crunch means that New York City may soon have to lay off thousands of teachers. And under a current policy we've all come to know, the LIFO, last in, first out, the newest teachers will be forced to go first. Lawmakers and some educators are trying to reform that policy. Now the question is, how can that be accomplished, and how much does the teachers union need to be involved? We're joined here in studio by Sydney Morris of Educators for Excellence, and on the phone by State Senator John Flanagan. And I'd like to start with you, Senator Flanagan. You have just introduced a bill that addresses LIFO. Can you tell us about it briefly?
Yes, we work closely with the mayor and the city of New York in light of the fact that there are potentially upwards of 6,000 layoffs coming in the city. This legislation would say that seniority cannot be the only consideration when you're contemplating layoffs. We add a whole series of criteria, but I would very clearly add that the bill calls for collective bargaining between the city and the UFT. It says seniority cannot be the only concern. It says if you use seniority, it has to be in the light most favorable to the employee. And it says you cannot get rid of somebody simply because of their salary. So there are a number of safeguards to actually help protect good long-term teachers. But as you well know, there's nothing that's more important than an effective, strong teacher in the classroom.
Now, Sydney, your group, Educators for Excellence, is opposed to LIFO. Well, how do you feel about the senator's bill and the criteria, specifically what they're going to use to determine if a teacher should be LIFO?
Sure. So first, a huge thank you to Senator Flanagan for introducing this bill, for taking a stand on behalf of the children of New York. Our group, Educators for Excellence, has over 2,000 current teachers in New York, and we proposed a set of recommendations, some of which are included in Senator Flanagan's bill, which is really exciting. And these are criteria that are objective and so are still fair to teachers, but much more closely aligned with student achievement.
Is this like class grades, test scores? What types of things would we be looking at?
Sure. So the three main things that Educators for Excellence has really been advocating for are, first, teachers to go would be teachers who have unsatisfactory ratings by their principals, teachers who have excessive absences, who really just aren't showing up, and teachers who've been in what's called the absent teacher reserve pool for a period longer than 6 months, who are teaching without a full-time, they are receiving full pay and benefits, but do not have a full-time teaching position.
Now, Senator Flanagan, I wanted to ask you, there has been some debate at this point whether LIFO is a collective bargaining issue or something that can be just passed with law, and the union may not have to be involved at all in revoking LIFO. Where do we stand at this point?
No, clearly what we're doing is modifying an existing state statute that's been in effect for decades. There are opportunities for either management or unions to come to Albany and say, look, we want an effective change in state law. But I would also hasten to add, I think it's very important that there be some collegiality and some procedure that works for everybody. There is no reason why you can't have solid, effective collective bargaining. But in this case, we are definitely modifying existing state law.
Now, Governor Cuomo misspoke when he first talked about this. He said LIFO was an issue that had been bargained with the union, therefore couldn't be changed by law. Now we're finding that's not true. So where do you stand in terms of support, and do you think the governor is going to be on board?
The governor has talked about it. I don't know how much detail he's attached to it. We're obviously in the middle of budget negotiations. I think this is the ripe opportunity to achieve some of the points that the Educators for Excellence have advocated, and the leadership of the chief executive and in particular of Governor Cuomo, if he wants to see this effectively get done, there's no doubt in my mind that it could be done and be a very positive outcome for everybody.
And Sydney, I wanted to ask you, how's the response been from teachers who aren't necessarily part of your group? You know, what are some of their concerns? I've heard some people with seniority are worried they may be targets just because they make more money, and it would be more efficient to get rid of one teacher instead of two if the salary is that much greater. Right. What are they saying to you? So
that's a common misconception, I think, that a lot of teachers have, that by saying last in, first out is wrong, that's automatically assuming that it would be first in, first out, and that's not what we're advocating for. And in fact, over 50% of our membership has 4 or more years of experience. They're tenured, and they wouldn't necessarily even be on the chopping block. So this view is really shared by a very diverse group of educators.
And how does it work with the teachers union? Are you in contact? Are you guys persona non grata? How has your relationship been?
Sure, we are part of the teachers union, and so we had a great event with UFT President Michael Mulgrew at the end of January where we started to share these ideas ideas with him. We've sent him our policy paper with these recommendations, and so we're hopeful that he will continue to be opening to having this dialogue, which he said before that the union really needs to be a democracy and debate should be encouraged.
All right. Well, I want to thank you so much, Sydney Morris, for joining us, and State Senator John Flanagan as well over the phone.